commits deadly sins with tattooing them across the face. And when the game starts, I'm going to give you the get-go, the beginning of the game, not to spoil the rest of it.
Right, of course.
When the game starts, the demons, the army of the fallen gods starts to reappear. Nobody knows why, but it's only natural for people, as I've described them, to think, we don't want to fight them. That's evil. So we'll face these evil demons with the worst side of our human nature. So they find a guy who's committed the most deadly sins out there, and that's our hero. That's Harkin. Tattooed all across the face, and I'm not gonna lie to anybody. He's not a good person.
Yeah.
He's a guy who's done a lot of bad things, but he's predestined to do what's ahead of him, and he's capable of doing what it takes to defeat the demonic army. And while Steve is playing in the background, I can tell you what's going on. He's actually using some of the cleric-based gear right now. Gear is not bound to your class. When you start a game, when you select the class of a character, you pretty much lock down the type of spells that you're going to be using. So anything else, like the gear that you have, or the way that you craft it, or the attributes of your character, that's totally independent of the class. This guy is a big right now. Some people will consider him a mini boss, but there is an easy way to defeat this guy, as you can see.
Go.
Of course, if he drops anything, you won't get it, so it's for your consideration as a player. You might have a challenging game for people who seek challenge, but at the same time, we put a lot of work in trying to remove the elements that especially for the mainstream audience, might feel like something frustrating, especially at the opening hours of the game. So, environmental deaths, the frequency of the checkpoints in the game, and a lot of stuff like that. We've actually tried to make sure that it's going to be slightly more widening the type of...
Seeing these, tough-looking enemies and the very careful, deliberate movements.
Yeah, most of the fights are one-on-one.
Yeah.
So actually learning particular type of opponent is the basis, the foundation of fun in this game, I believe.
So, I mean, with that, you get like kind of an immediate Dark Souls kind of a feel. Is it fair to say that you guys are fans of that series but trying to do something different?
It's not fair, it's true. I would be cheating, I would be ungrateful, I would be stupid not to deny that Dark Souls is definitely one of the Souls series, so to say. It's definitely one of the inspirations, but I think there are a lot of differences in Lords, a lot of things that make it stand out on its own that people will not think that it's a bad thing. And inspiration is not a bad thing, it doesn't have to be. And because of that, I believe that playing Lords of the Fallen is going to be frustrating. I believe, we're working hard on that.
Right, of course. So, in case you guys have any questions about Lords of the Fallen, you can send them my way in the GameSpot chat. I'm curious about, you mentioned checkpoints in the game. How does the checkpoint system work?
Actually, Steve is just next to one of the checkpoints, as you can see, the red shard in here. It's not working when enemies are near. But the interesting thing is they are not placed only like in the beginning of the location. You won't have to be backtracking a whole location when you die close to the boss fight. And interesting mechanics that we have for the save points is that you can actually bank the XP that you are upgrading your spells at any given time, because when you will have banked your XP, you can, for example, wait until the boss fight and try to make up your mind what the best strategy is, and use that upgrade that you have booked until then back at that time. I think it's it's one of these things that will make people. The most important thing, there are a lot of most important things, but one of the most important things for us in Lords of the Fallen was to try to distribute the learning process across the span of time game.
All right, let's see here.
Steve is almost at the boss fight, just one last spider to defeat. I know a lot of people think that calling this a spider is a little bit of an exaggeration, but still. If you leave the spider alone for too long, he's going to be laying eggs, they're going to be hatching, small spider, like this one.
Oh yeah, a little baby spider.
Yeah, it's just getting a little bit more difficult if you leave spider alone, so it's probably advised to try to deal a lot of damage in a short amount of time to try to deal with them fast. And I also believe that Steve is going to be trying to tackle the boss that is just up ahead. And the boss that we're going to see, Champion, as we call him, is an interesting one because he's got a rage mode that he gets, there's a bartery. He starts to be aflamed, his blades that he have on the hands start to be aflamed, and it gets a whole lot more difficult then. So, but there's a symmetry. There's a reverse mechanics in that, because if you deal a lot of the damage to the boss, you get to stun him. If you deal even more, you get to stun him again, and that second stun is longer, and so on and so on and so on. So there's a particular reflection in the way you.
You a question about the classes. I believe you mentioned that this is the cleric that we're seeing here.
Steve is using cleric gear, so to say, in here. But the most important thing is that there are spells that determine sort of your class at the beginning of the game. So if you want to, there are 3 classes of spell trees. If you want to choose a cleric, most of the spells will be like regenerative.
Yeah.
If you want to use down and like brawling through enemies and having high damage, even if you can take a hit. And that is one thing, and the other thing, because there are 3 pillars of character development, as I mentioned. The second one is attributes, and the third one is gear, the armors, the shields, and the weapons. These are class independent, so technically, what we could say that Steve is right now is using a cleric gear, and he's using one of the warrior spells, and here Ram, the running, very strong and powerful projectile that we be shooting. Maybe you could call it a battle mage. You know, there's like a mix that you can create your own. There you go, one of the spells.
All right.
Pretty much let's see if Steve can. Oh, he got hit. Let's see if Steve can defeat the champion boss. If not, he's probably going to be trying again. Also, you will then notice that it won't take him. Nice dodge. That it won't take him a whole location to backtrack it to get to the boss again, because you respawn quite close.
Steve, you made it all this way, and then we're going to remove you from your moment of glory. But
let's sum it up. Lords of Fallen is coming out this fall. We definitely don't want to be one of these games that slips into 2015. We're coming out this fall, 2014, on PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. We're a next-gen game, and I really think you can tell by watching the game. A lot of time and work we've invested in the effects and the clots, and then, you know, really believe that a lot of the power that is in the next-gen platforms has given us opportunity to make this game look so good, and with our direction that we have. More of a